place to be for the hottest jobs and the most reliable advice for job searches. I'm Jerry Ramusak, the CEO, and this is Dave Woody, the founding partner. Today we're going to be discussing viewer questions and candidate questions from the last week. We had a good session last week and we're going to go at that again this week. We'll dive right in, and today's first question for us is, I've sent my CV to everyone in Miami and no one has gotten back to me. What should I do?
This is actually one that I fielded just yesterday,
Okay.
as a matter of fact, and I thought it was a viable question to extrapolate to not just Miami, but other bigger cities. And it's quite common that we get people call and have this issue.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that there's a lot of people looking for jobs in Miami or in New York City or in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not in those cities and you're not readily available, you may not get a call back. And if you're sitting around waiting for that phone call, it may never come, in which case you really need to explore plan B,
Mm-hmm.
which is where I think we can really help a lot of people out. It's amazing how just incrementally going out, the number of jobs opens up to people that aren't local. And the difference in a job search you can get by going 15, 20 miles out. The money goes up, there's more need for the doctors, and they can really just get a better overall job, and then in their free time have access to the city. So it's, really I think that what physicians need to think about is not being right in a particular location, but being accessible to the location, and they'll find that their career options are going to be a lot better, and that they'll be much happier with the direction their career goes.
I agree, and a lot of these big metropolitan areas, your most desirable metros, Miami being one in this example, but you could go across the nation. We're an hour south of Indianapolis, and what they have is they have a lot of training programs, and those training programs breed new graduates every year. So if you're moving into these areas from outside of these highly desirable areas, you're competing every year with several graduates that might want to stay in the area, that are already living in the area, that already have the track record with these programs. So it's pretty competitive in some of these areas. So again, plan B, give us a call. We'll produce some new areas for you that you might not have thought about. Moving on to our next question here. How many job interviews should I go on before I make a decision? You want to take that one?
I think it's somewhat a personal choice, but I would like to point out that in my experience over the last 25 years, that once a doctor exceeds about 4 interviews, they start kind of blending together, and the details from one to the next become more and more difficult to differentiate, and the first interview gets kind of pushed out of your mind, and the last interview is kind of there, and they don't end up taking the best job. They end up taking the easiest job to take, which quite often is not the best job to take. So I think really what they need to do is be a little more strategic on the front end, hear about a lot of jobs, weed out the weak ones, and only go on the top 2 or 3 that meet all, as close to their criteria as possible. I mean, there's no perfect job, but if you can weed out, if you're going on an interview just to go on an interview, you're probably making a mistake.
It's better to not go than to waste time, your time and your employer's time, perhaps.
Yeah, that's what. And you should do that on the front end before you even set the interview
Over the
up,
phone.
though,
Excellent. Let's go a little deeper here. And we'll go with, I just finished my training and I need a break. What do you think about taking a gap year? That's an interesting question. We're being physicians and being highly trained individuals, you don't see that often, honestly. Between Dave and I, we've got 45 years experience in this field, and gaps on CVs generally tend to hurt your opportunities down the road. The gaps always need to be explained. But with that said, this is an opportunity to go take a year away or take some time away, whether it's a year, 4 months, 6 weeks, and take a little sabbatical. You're always going to be marketable. And the shorter you keep that sabbatical after training, perhaps the better. You could recharge your batteries after completion, find a job where you could start several months after completion and take some time for yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you're in a surgical specialty, you got to stay active though, and I wouldn't make that sabbatical too long. The surgical specialties, you got to get right on it right away and start finding your opportunities. There's a lot out there to be had, and don't take too long of a gap if you're in one of those specialties. But if you could afford to do it, go for it. You've been working hard for the last 7 to 10 years. Life is short. Get some time in and get your job lined up with a start date down the road. Everybody's willing to take you a little bit later. You don't have to start your job 20 days after you complete training or that following Monday from the Friday you complete. You could start several months down the road, and many employers will still find you highly appealing.
But it might be better to have the job lined up first and just have an extended.
It would be a bigger weight off your shoulders than being on a sabbatical.
Have that job
Still
lined
thinking
up,
about it.
and then take, say, look, I'm going to accept your job, but this is when I'm available. Instead of taking that, because there's still a stigma about gaps on CVs.
There is.
I mean, like it or not, there's a big stigma about it.
And if you plan ahead and talk about that plan with employers and even future employers down the road, just plan ahead for the situation. It'll be easy to discuss and highly explainable. Help, I don't have a job lined up yet and I'm graduating in 2017. Should I be panicking? Not at all. Plenty of time left to find job opportunities. Right now it's February 1st. I've seen the date get further and further back over the last 5 to 7 years as to when residents are accepting jobs for the summer after their graduation. And it's amazing. You're going to be in demand right up till the end. I always see a trend right around March. I kind of correlate it with March Madness, the NCAA tournament, when a lot of new jobs open up because a lot of either people that are graduating from residencies or folks that are moving in between the school years due to kids in school, they've committed to a job. However, they continued their interview process and maybe they found something better down the road. And you have a lot of employers finding out right about now, not quite yet, but March 15th through April 15th, that who they thought was coming in the summer might not be coming now. And so a lot of jobs open up at that time frame where they're really hurrying to fill these slots. And at any point between now and the time that you graduate, you're going to be in high demand. So there should be absolutely no concerns about not having an opportunity yet. However, be diligent in surfing through those now. And like Dave said just a few minutes earlier, weed out 2 to 3 of your best opportunities now and limit the amount of interviews you go on to only the ones that you feel good about going into. And that would be the advice that I'd give you at this point. But absolutely, no need to panic. Plenty of time left. Go on with your job search as you would, and you'll have plenty of employers looking at you.
And I would say that also that we've had far more new jobs open up this month of January than we did in December or even November. So there are new jobs right now that didn't exist late last year. And they're primed for somebody coming out of residency.
Across all specialties in this past 30 days, I believe we added about 680 jobs to our system. Yeah. So significant job growth in the last month and probably double the December. December is kind of a slow month in our industry, as you can imagine. We're running out of questions here. This jar is pretty skinny. I've got big hands. My residency program offered me a job. Should I stay with my program or look for other opportunities? That's a good question. This goes back to what Dave was saying again. You take 2 to 3 interviews, you find the best job, and you go with what feels good in your heart. The nice thing of staying with your program is you're transitioning to something that you already know. This is one of those opportunities where you could finish your training on a Friday and start getting your first paycheck that next Monday morning. So there's something very appealing about that. Many times you might have a spouse that's completing training in the same area and it makes complete and total sense to stay with your program. Other times you might just be tied into that area and want to remain living there. It's a place you enjoy and you've got an inside track to that employer that you already know how they work and operate. And if you're considering it, obviously you like what you've seen so far. With that said, I'd always find a measuring stick. I'd find a yardstick to look at other opportunities and compare that to what your training program is offer. It would be a shame to go through all this training and then just accept your first offer from your program without at least seeing what else is out there. But I see no problem with accepting an opportunity with your residency program, extending your knowledge of the local base, and really moving up the ladder from within. It sounds like a great idea to me if you could do it.
I would just ask about other people that have stayed and what their experience has been. Because I've had a number of people that have stayed on, and even though they're not a resident, they're treated like a resident by the people that train them. It's hard sometimes for these senior folks to really start treating the new person as a, full-fledged doctor as opposed to a resident. And that gets frustrating for some people. So, you want to make sure that you're not going to get stuck in that situation, because you will be looking for another job quickly.
That's great advice. And the last one of the day is going to be, what's the difference between a salary, an income guarantee, and an independent contractor? It's a good question.
This comes up a lot.
It does.
Obviously, a salary is where you're an employee,
Mhm.
and your employer gives you a base salary. And on top of that base salary, there's different ways to accumulate more income. RVUs, which we don't really have time today to get into. But the biggest difference is like an income guarantee is a loan. A salary is money that's given to you for putting in your 40 hours a week. In most instances, an income guarantee is given to a physician who's going into a private practice environment. It's against the law for a hospital to give you money to incentivize you to admit to their hospital. So what they do is they form it as a loan, and you technically pay the loan back. So you got to remember that. If you get busy and you're making, your patient base takes off and you're exceeding the income guarantee, it's free money. If you get at the end of 2 years and that income guarantee runs out, your income drops and you're stuck in that location. So that's what you got to look for with an income guarantee. With the salary, if you don't get busy and your practice doesn't take off, you can give your notice and you can move on. And so there's a little more flexibility down the road with the salary. But if you're pretty sure that you can be in your own business and you're going to make a good income guarantee is not a bad way to go.
And that's a great place to look into, where we could help you out quite a bit, is physician per capita rates. And what Dave's talking about with the income guarantee comes up a lot in smaller communities that maybe have one general surgeon or one urologist, and maybe the business just isn't there, but to support somebody making 60 to 75th percentile income. However, the need is there for the hospital and the community, so the hospital will support that physician with a salary, whereas if they gave them an income guarantee, after 2-3 years when that income guarantee runs out, there might not be enough business to support that same level of income guarantee, and nobody's fault other than the population growth. So that's something you have to look out for as you're looking at new opportunities. Anything else?
I think that's it for today.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for viewing this week, and we'll talk to you soon.